Hey everybody, today I'm talking about Chiseled, which is a 1 to 4 player card game that takes about 30 minutes to play. This one was released in 2020 after a successful Kickstarter campaign. Now the idea of this game is that we are sculptors trying to make the perfect statue for the critics. And as you can see from the kind of tagline here, it says a deck sculpting card game. This is because it almost works in an opposite way to a deck builder, where you would normally start with a basic hand of cards and build up to a stronger and stronger deck. This one, everybody starts with an identical deck of cards, like so, made up of different cards, such as these arms here. You've got these torsos, you've got heads, and you've also got a load of these trash cards that look like this, which are going to be worth negative points at the end of the game. And the idea is that we're going to try to be using all these different tools to get rid of all the fat from our deck to get the perfect statue. And the way you determine to get a perfect statue is based on this criteria here. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to start with nine torsos, 9 arms, and 9 heads. And you're trying to get the perfect number of them left in your deck at the end of the game. So for example, to get the perfect amount of points for the torsos, you need to make sure that you have 4 in your trash. To get the perfect amount of arms, you need to have 7 in your trash. And to get the perfect amount of heads, you are going to have to keep them all, basically. So that's going to be your optimal amount of points. You've also got these critics that are going to be give you endgame bonuses based on different things. So for example, this one here gives you an extra 4 points if your final trash pile contains 5 or more black cards, because as you can see here, not only are the different body parts depicted on the cards, you've also got different colours. You've got gold, black, and you also have silver cards as well. This one here, for example, if your trash pile contains more silver cards than black cards, and this one here says if your trash pile contains more black cards than gold cards. So that gives you a bit of an incentive of what to work towards, as well as trying to get the most points based on these numbers here. So how does the game actually play out? So first off, all you're going to do is, if these tools have been used, you're going to flip them all face up, but that's not normally going to be the case. But what you're going to do from then on is you're going to pick one of these different craftsman's tools to use in order to manipulate your deck. Something I should say as well is that you're always going to have a hand of 3 cards, for example here. And if you ever have 3 or more body parts without this trash, you are going to move your little score tracker down here. And when that gets right to the end, that's going to trigger the end of the game for all the players. So that's something you're going to have to bear in mind, and the pacing of this game does change from game to game. So once you've got your hand of cards, you're going to select which one of these tools you're going to use. And as you can see, they all do lots of different things. For example here, this one lets you trash all the cards from your hand, which is going to be a good thing if you have a hand full of these kind of rubble cards, because as you can see, they're going to be worth negative 3 points for each one of those cards that I have in my hand at the end of the game. So you want to make sure you get rid of as many of them as you can. They all do different things here, such as they reveal the top 2 cards of your deck and of your draw pile, trash one of them and discard the other, because not only are you going to have a trashing pile, which means that they're out of your deck for good, you're going to have a discarding pile, which is kind of where you want to keep the body parts that you want to keep for your final statue. This one here, this heavy sledge lets you trash 2 cards from your hand and trash the top card from anyone's draw pile. So that can not only be your draw pile, but you can use somebody else's as well if they've manipulated the deck to have their maybe their heads on the top of their deck or something. And basically, they'll all let you do different things to either look at cards, trash cards, save cards in your discard pile, maybe manipulate your deck a bit and line these moves up so that so that they can kind of work together. But once you use one of these objectives or one of these tools, they're going to be flipped face down, meaning that nobody else can use that until they've all been used. And once they've all been used, they'll all flip back face up. You'll discard any cards you've got left in your hand into your discard pile and draw back up a new hand of 3. And that's basically going to be how the game plays out until, as I said, this check-in card goes all the way down to 0, where you'll count up all the cards you've got left in your hand and score points based on these numbers here. So that's going to be how the game is going to play out. So as you can see, the tools here do have a bit of manipulation and give you a bit of autonomy about what you have to do. But of course, you are always subject to what is available there. People are going to be taking probably the ones that you want before you do, meaning that sometimes you are backed into a bit of a corner and are forced to take cards or use cards that you don't want to take, which can potentially cause you problems by maybe getting rid of pieces that you don't want to get rid of, etc. So it is a very tactical game where you want to react with your current deck and your current hand in order to keep as many points prevalent as you can. So yeah, that it's a very tactical and reactionary game. But of course, you can make decisions based on what you think other players will want. If you won't know personally or exactly if a player has a handful of trash cards. But if you want to take a certain tool to stop them doing that, meaning that they might have to put more of their trash cards into their discard pile, which can prevent them scoring lots of points at the end of the game. Decision-wise, it's not the deepest of games. It's a very simple game of trying to balance and keep the spin the plates and try not to get rid of too many cards you want to get rid of, but while getting rid of the useless cards. And again, very very much a game of striking the balance. And as you can see here, the pacing of the points is quite different. Whereas the torsos start off with giving you no points, but as you trash them it goes up, but then it goes back down again. So it's very much a delicate balance of those ones. The hands fluctuate in points, scoring 0 and then 3 and then 0 and then 6. So again, you want to be very careful and precise about what you have at the end of the game, whereas the heads are pretty simple, where you don't want to get rid of any of them, because if you do, then you're automatically going to be losing points from round to round. So yeah, there is a delicate balance in terms of the decisions, but you are subject to what is available at all times. And of course, you're trying to consider the end game bonuses as well. It's a relatively quick game. It only takes 20-30 minutes to play, so it's not a game that bogs down too much in terms of its downtime or anything like that. The turns tick by quickly, and it isn't a game that outstays its welcome. It's relatively quick. Mechanically, I do really love the concept of deck deconstruction. I think it's very much an underused and underexplored mechanism, which I think there's a lot of potential for. Everybody loves the idea of deck building, but the fact that everybody starts with the same thing in this game and has to work towards a better deck by shedding cards rather than gaining cards, I think is a really novel idea and something that I'd like to see more. This is a relatively simple example of that, and I'd probably like to see something a bit more involved, but I still give it praise for giving that kind of genre a go. Replayability. There is a lot of tools here. As you can see, not all of these are used in every game. I think there's only 7 cards used in a 1, 2 or 3 player game, and in a 4 player game you use 9. But there are lots of different things here. So you've got variable games or variable things you can do from game to game. All the critics are different as well. You've got lots of different ones to give you lots of end game things to work towards. The player interaction really does lie with snatching the tools before the other players grab them. So it is very much passive player interaction, but some of the cards do throw a bit of a spanner in the works for your opponents, by choosing opponents to do certain things or targeting opponents, but it's very subtle and there isn't really much take that or anything like that. Aesthetically, I don't think it's the best looking game. I think it's a unique idea and theme. The cards look okay. They've got this very much almost computerized graphic look, and I do like this kind of marble texture. The tools themselves, some of them are a bit pixelated and don't look that that high quality or resolution. And the artwork of the characters is a bit of a disconnect as well, because some of them look really modern, some of them look a bit dated, some of them are a bit futuristic. So I think it struggles with a bit of what it's trying to go for in terms of its overall aesthetic, because there is a bit of a jarring disconnect between all the different art types. But the components themselves are of a good quality. The card stock is decent. All the actual cards are well explained and what they do. And the boards, again, they're quite a good reference tool in order to hold all the information you need them to. And also these little round trackers are good as well, because they explain all the core stages in the game. So no real issue with the components themselves, but the artwork could have been better. The theme, I think, is really novel. I love this idea of having to build statues. I think it's a different approach, and I do like fresh ideas. So yeah, I can't really complain about that. I think there's another bit of a thematic disconnect here in terms of what tools you want, because why would you want a statue to have 5 torsos and 3 hands and and 9 heads? So it doesn't really quite make sense that way. but you know, that's being a bit nitpicky. Setup and teardown time is no issue either. You know, just set up the cards, give each player a deck, which is quite nice because everyone's got the same deck, and just set up a couple of these critics. So yeah, no complaints in terms of the setup time. The sense of progression is quite interesting because, of course, you are constantly shedding cards, trying to keep the best cards in your hand, or at least in your discard pile. So there is this tension of just, you know, striking that balance just right. And of course, if you start shedding, your torsos early, you're not giving yourself much leeway of making mistakes, because as soon as you go past that threshold, you're going to start losing points. So the pacing is quite interesting. The scalability is fine. I mean, there's no real issue here. The turns are quite quick, so you're not really bogged down by other players' turns. And again, it works fine at all player counts, I would say. I haven't played the solo mode of this one, so I can't really comment on that one, but I imagine it would work quite well. And of course, comparison-wise, I haven't ever played another deck deconstruction game, but it's certainly an idea that I'd like to explore more. So yeah, I'd only be able to compare this one to deck builders rather than other deck deconstruction games. But overall, I felt this game was a bit of a hit and a miss for me. Again, I like the fresh idea here. I love that I've got no other game in the collection that does this kind of thing, you know, starting with a deck of cards and shedding, trying to get the perfect balance. But there are a few issues I have with it, not only because it's relatively light in itself. First off, I find that these critics don't offer enough autonomy on what you're going to go towards. So I really find that if you are trying to go for these, or you get points from these critics at the end of the game, it's very much going to be coincidental. You know, you don't really find yourself working towards them. It's just you might just get it or you might not. You know, for example, you get +4 if your trash pile contains 5 or more black cards. You know, you might just get lucky and get that. You're never going to focus on it. And same with these ones as well. You know, if your trash pile contains more silver than black, it just might happen. And of course, these are actually contradicting with each other as well. So I do find that is just one of the things that either will work out or it won't. And that's just going to be how it works out rather than working towards it. Additionally, I would have loved to have seen a better mechanism in terms of using these actual abilities. Of course, this is a communal kind of bunch of cards where whenever someone's taking things, they're flipping them over, making your options smaller and smaller as the game goes on. And when they're all used, they'll flip face up. But I would have really loved to have seen a system where you could actually pick and choose which card you use, maybe with a personal set of action cards. So you can really line up your moves and manipulate your deck and then use a trash card and know with more precision what you're going to get rid of. Now, I understand that's part of the fun of the game, you know, when you end up trashing cards from the top of your deck and you're getting rid of all your heads and things. But I think in terms of longevity and for more of a gamer's game, it would have been nicer to have seen, as I said, a more interesting hand management system where you could use these cards in a more precise and interesting way. Maybe something like a Concordia, you know, where you play your cards and you can use another action card to pick them all back up or something. That would have been really nice to have seen, but I understand it might have changed the whole scope of the game from a simple filler game to maybe a more involved game. Maybe more of a personal taste thing there. But despite that, I don't dislike the game. At the same time, I don't love it either. It just is what it is, really. As I said earlier, I really am looking forward to seeing a great deck deconstruction game because I think it's a real untapped market, and I don't think Chiseled is going to be the game that paves the way of being a great deck deconstruction game. But nonetheless, I still applaud the idea, and I applaud taking a fresh approach to a card game. But yeah, if this appeals to you, give it a go because it's certainly not a bad game. That is Chiseled by Copper Frog Games. So if you have enjoyed this review, please hit like and subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.